cardigans are underrated. is my conclusion. And I think that's going to be the theme almost of the past couple of months of knitting. Almost everything is from stash. On to a free pattern. It was actually my first cardigan that I ever knit. Hello, and welcome back to quite a long-awaited episode of the Knit Licorice podcast. I'm finally back. I'm on my summer holidays, and I thought I finally had some peace of mind to sit down and prepare for this new podcast episode and film it for you guys. And I'm so happy to be sharing a lot of things today. Some info about where I've been, what I've been doing. And actually 5 finished objects. So that's a lot, but I think it's been 3 months since I uploaded last, and so that's why there's a lot to share with you today. We'll see. There you have a sneak peek of what's going on, and this is kind of a clue too about what I've been doing. And so there we go. 5 finished objects. I have some whips to share with you, works in progress, a few new acquisitions, and just some fun bonus things at the end. Yeah, I think today we're gonna have quite a structured episode. I'm gonna start with my finished objects and move on to my works in progress and some acquisitions and fun things at the end. And if you're new here, my name is Michaela. I'm so happy to have you here. And if you're a returning viewer, I'm also very happy to have you here. I am a knitter from Stockholm, Sweden, and that's where I am today. We have a rather glum, stormy looking kind of a day today. It's been quite a rainy summer. We had a couple of intense weeks in May and June where it was super, super warm here. It was almost up in the 30 degrees Celsius, which is not really that usual for Stockholm. And then July came around and the temperatures just sank. And yeah, which is a bit of a shame because I'm starting my summer holidays basically this Monday. But yeah, it's fine. But what have I been up to? So as some of you may know, I went to Italy earlier this summer in the beginning of June. So I had a lot of mental capacity was tied up in that trip and the planning, and honestly, my creative energy wasn't really on top, but I was super fascinated once I sat down to prepare for this episode with how many things I'd actually accomplished making. So that was really nice to see, write down some thoughts, and yeah. So we went to Italy. We were in Venice first, and then we were in the Dolomites. We had a really rainy week in the Dolomites. I guess it was just, but I think Italy's had a very rainy summer, like unusually rainy. And it was rainy when we were there too. But still amazing views, amazing place. Venice, we managed to just stick to some side streets when we were actually out in Venice. And there were not a lot of people there. But on the main streets, sure, many people, but otherwise not so much. So it was really nice and really warm compared to the Dolomites, where it was not very warm. So without any further ado, I guess we could start with what I'm wearing today. Maybe if I get up, you can see it a bit better. There we go. This is a rather recent pattern from Caitlin Hunter or Boylan Knitworks. It's the Midsummer tea pattern, and it's a 12-stitch gauge worked up on 8mm needles. It has an intended ease of 0 to 25.5 centimeters, and I knit mine in size 3. It comes in sizes 1 to 210 with finished circumference, bust circumference of 86.5 to 178 centimeters. And yeah, I finished this like the day before yesterday, I think, and I thought it would never dry after blocking, but it did. I put it in the sun, opened the window, and then it took a couple of hours. But it's quite heavy, thick yarn as well, so I wasn't sure how it was going to go. But yeah, if I tell you a bit about this pattern, let's see. Yeah, so the way it's constructed is you work the ribbing separately for the front and back. You work it flat, and then you connect them and work in the round up to the split for sleeves. And then you work the back, the front, and the two shoulders separately from each other. And then the shoulders also include some short rows. So that's, I think, what's creating this sloping, the shoulders, which is quite nice. And you are supposed to finish this by picking up stitches around the sleeves and the collar and knit some ribbing. I actually chose not to do that because I thought it was quite okay as it was. I like it, and it's such a heavy, I'm gonna get into what yarn this is, but it's so heavy and drapey, and it's plant-based, so it's not curling really almost anything. So I opted to not do the ribbing here or any of those finishing details really, and I think it worked out nice. Oh yeah, and it is quite a cropped fit, and that's what the designer intended. But if you wanted to knit it longer, it would be super easy to modify the length if you had enough yarn, that is. I think the original has some options, but one of them is 2 strands of DK weight yarn, and I think you would need, for size 2, around 420, for size 3, sorry, 420 meters, give or take, of each strand of yarn that you choose to use. And this is knit in 4 strands actually of Sandnes Garn Tynn liner or thin linen. 4 strands held together, and whereas 3 strands were in this shade, it's shade 7521, and it's like a silvery kind of really light green bluey shade, which I had in stash. I've had this in stash for a year, and I think that's going to be the theme almost of the past couple of months of knitting, is that almost everything is from stash or pantry. It's from my yarn pantry, right? So that's super nice. But so was this. I did buy some of this in this shade. So it's 1 strand of this and 3 strands of this shade to make this like cool, what do you call it, melange effect, I guess. This is in the shade 6554, and I think it's called like Deep Petrol or something. So yeah, 4 strands of those. I still have a lot left, which I don't know how that happened, except for like a super skinny ribbing detail. I don't know how I would have used up the required amount of yarn for size 3 at all. So that might be a good indication for you too, if you have a little less yarn. It might work out for you anyway. I do like it. It created a really drapey fabric. It was quite a quick knit. I think I started it in the end of June and finished it in like 2.5 weeks or something. And however, it is, yeah, so it's a nice fit and it's quite drapey, and I like that. But it is quite warm, even though it's plant-based fibers. Tynn liner is made out of 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen. But it is still quite warm because this is quite a thick fabric. So just keep that in mind if you want to work this up. Well, if I put some conclusion to this pattern, is that it was really easy, I think, to follow along with the pattern. And for me, it was quite a quick knit. And I would consider actually doing this again with like a wintry kind of fiber and make it a vest. So I would knit this again. I thought it was a fun, quite simple, quick knit. So yeah, I would knit again. So yeah, this is the Midsummer Tea by Caitlin Hunter. And now let's head back a bit in time to March, April, where I think I left off in the last episode, because I'd only done the yoke of this sweater, I think, at that point. It is this lovely number here, super not summer appropriate. It's a really fluffy and quite warm sweater, which is, yeah, by the time I'd finished it, it was already a bit too warm to wear this, so I haven't actually, I think I worn it maybe once, but I'm super excited to wear it more this fall and autumn. I think it will be super nice. And now you might be wondering, but hey, what is this? This is the Apollonis pullover by Sari Nordlund, and it's this super nice round yoke pullover, worked seamlessly, like from the top down. Details are in, you have this like rolled stockinette stitch edge here, and then 1x1 ribbing for all of the hems and things. It has options for short row shaping at the back neck and after the sleeve split, I think it was, yeah. And I did both. It has a bind-off in pattern for the body seam, but a sewn tubular bind-off is actually recommended for the sleeves, which I thought was funny that it was two different bind-off methods recommended, but I think it worked out super nicely either way. So this is, actually it was, yeah, I might just tell you. I saw it on Woozy by Celine. She has a knitting podcast as well on YouTube, and she puts things on hangers, and I thought it was a really nice way to show off the pieces. So a bit more about this pattern is that it's a 14 stitch gauge worked up on needles 6mm or 6mm needles. It has a 10 to 15 centimeter recommended ease, and I knit mine in size 3. It comes in 9 sizes, ranging from 87 to 167 centimeters finished bust circumference. Well, actually, maybe I should pull this back if I'm going to show you some more. So the yarn in this, it is completely finished, all the ends are woven in, it's blocked and everything. Like I said, I finished this in April, I think. So it's been done for a while. But it's worked up in Sandnes Garn brushed alpaca or Børstet alpaca. I don't know how to say it. I don't speak Norwegian. But it's this super nice and fluffy kind of a yarn, and worked at 6mm needles. It was quite quick for me to make as well, and it made this super, like, as you can see, it's still quite dense. I think you can see like my nails poke through if I do it like that, but otherwise no. See, it's this tweedy kind of a fabric. But I think last time I spoke about this, I said it reminded me of like when the snow is melting here in the springtime, and it has a lot of little pieces of gravel in it. That's what that reminds me of. So it's kind of a wintry shade to me. But yeah, either way, it's this, made in this yarn. And I do have a bit left over. It's in the colorway 2523, and this can be worked up in a 12 to 18 stitch gauge, basically, on 4 to 7mm needles. So it's quite a versatile yarn. You can do with it like almost whatever you want. Quite warm. It's 83% brushed alpaca, 13% Donegal, and 4% nylon. And 50 grams is 110 meters. So it creates this nice and fluffy fabric, like I showed you, but it's almost like working with a plant fiber. It has like zero stretch. So it could be a bit hard on the hands at some points, but I really liked it anyway. It's so fluffy, and with all the tweedy bits, it's really nice, I think. So in conclusion, I think this was a really nice and simple pattern. It was super clearly written and everything. And to me it was quite fast, like I said, quite quick. It's a super nice and fluffy yarn, and though I haven't worn it much yet, but I know I will once it gets a bit colder outside. And maybe I can show you. It's from her book, Sari Nordlund's book, Softly, Timeless Knits. And I really like this book. I like working with the patterns here. So yeah, I think we're not going to linger much longer on this nice and easy pattern. I really enjoyed the yarn choice. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. I've had a short coffee break. I felt like my energy was draining a bit, so I'm gonna try drink some coffee and pick it up a bit. Yeah, onto a free pattern actually that I knit up. It's a drops pattern, and I think it's a couple of years old probably. It's called the Sunshine Impressions cardigan, and it's the yellow thing hanging back there. And I worked on it from like April through May to the middle of May, and it's, like I mentioned, a cardigan with some lace details, as you can see. It has a 14 stitch gauge on stockinette stitch, which the sleeves are, knit on needle 6mm, so it's actually the same gauge and needles as the Apollonis that I just showed you, and it is worked flat from the top down. It has these saddle shoulder, I think it's called, details, but then it has some raglan like increases afterwards. It has, let's see, it has details with 2x2 ribbing, and then the button band is garter stitch, and you knit it as you go. So there is no additional picking up of stitches anywhere. After you're finished. There are no details that need to be added basically. So you do that, you split for sleeves, or you split away the sleeves, I guess. Then you work the body, and then you take those stitches that you put on hold and you knit the sleeves as well. And I think, I just bound off in pattern, and it's probably what's recommended in the pattern because it usually is with drops patterns like this. But yeah, so this is a free pattern, and it has like these lace details like I showed. Just these simple eyelets. Let's see if I can get you a bit closer. Here you go. Let's see. Yeah. And I knit this in this happy kind of yellow shade that reminded me a lot of Easter, and I like this color for spring, which is when I knitted this. It actually comes in quite a lot of sizes for like a free drops pattern. It comes in sizes small through triple XL, I guess you say XXXL, with finished circumference ranging from 102 to 150 centimeters. Although the intended or recommended ease is unclear, and I don't know. I don't think I've seen like a recommended ease in drops patterns before, so I wasn't surprised. But still, there you go with the finished circumferences at least. And I think I knit mine in size medium, so the second size, basically. I knit mine up in this yarn. Also a stash buster, like I mentioned, would be the theme. It continues to be the theme. It's this 3 thread thick wool, would be the translation for this. And it's this discontinued yarn, I think, from Sandnes Garn as well. A lot of Sandnes Garn in this episode so far. But yeah, it's discontinued, and it's a bulky weight yarn, I think. It's intended like at a 16 stitch gauge with 5mm needles, and I worked it up in 14 stitches on 6mm needles, which I felt comfortable doing because this is 100% Norwegian wool, so it's quite rustic, and I don't think it will, like knitting it at a looser gauge, I don't think will drastically impact the wearability or longevity of this garment, I don't think. But so yeah, it's this yarn, and it's kind of a strange texture on this yarn, so it is quite springy, but you can sort of, let's see, clearly see the individual strands to this yarn. Yeah, like if I do this, you can see it uncoiling a bit there, and it's kind of a strange texture. It's very spirally, I guess is what I'm trying to say, but it created this quite actually drapey fabric. Like, it's not stiff at all, and it might have something to do with the looser gauge as well, but it's really quite nice and drapey, and I haven't put any buttons in. It has buttonholes, but I haven't put in any buttons yet. Oh, and I should mention too, there are no short rows in this pattern, but I did add some Yemen short rows down here. So after the last repeat and before the ribbing, the last lace repeat, I did add some short rows, and I think it is apparent from the side seams. Yeah, there you can maybe see. Oh, sorry, you cannot see it all. There we go. Yeah, so it ended down here, and these are the added stitches for the short rows that I worked, and I think that added a nice bit of detail, so it hangs a bit lower in the back. But I don't think, if I did put in a button here at the top, I think I would be a bit strangled because it does go up, right up a bit. So I don't think, even if I had all the buttons, I don't know that I would necessarily button it anyway. I quite like to have it open, but I added the buttonholes to have the option to add buttons if I wanted to. And yeah, it created this sort of drapey fabric. It blocked out quite nicely. I think I have a picture of what it looked like before, and it was really scrunched up and tight, and I think lace really does that. It opens up after blocking, or with blocking rather. And I'm not sure this lace, or this yarn, sorry, was the perfect choice for working lace. It is a bit, like, it's a bit too defined in the stitches, and I think a bit less structured yarn would be a better choice here. Yeah, but I still like it. It's a nice Easter kind of yellow. Oh, I didn't tell you the shade. It's 2114. Sun is gone. And so yeah, in conclusion, I think it was a relatively easy and quick knit. However, the pattern, and drops patterns do this all the time, they leave out certain details. So it'll be like, okay, so the stitches or the repeats, they won't add up perfectly at the side seam under the arms. You can work it out yourself, basically, how you're gonna do it, which is a bit annoying. So I did do something in the side seam. Let's see if I can show you again. Yeah, you can probably see that the stitch pattern is a bit broken up here. So I think I added a column of stockinette through right under the arm, and then I split up the motif in one half on each side of the... So it was not really, I mean, it wasn't really difficult, but I don't know that a beginner would necessarily find that very intuitive to kind of just figure it out. I suppose you could add just stockinette throughout the entire side panel and just don't split up the motif at all. That might be quite a easy way to work with this pattern, but otherwise I thought it was quite intuitive and nice to work on, actually. And like I mentioned, it was quite quick. And I think also I opted to do like just straight sleeves. I think the pattern has some decreases that I chose not to do. So I have these quite straight sleeves with this wide 2x2 rib at the end, which I really like, actually. And I think the bind off worked out quite nicely as well. It was actually my first cardigan that I ever knit, and I had a good experience with it. It is quite warm, though. It's, like I said, a bulky Norwegian wool, so it's nice and warm, but I think the lace adds some nice ventilation holes for air to go through, so that's nice at least. But I think I will use it more come fall and winter and spring and everything. Or for maybe a chill summer evening is what I had in mind. But yeah, it's been raining so much, so this has not really been a proper occasion to wear it, I think. Not yet. Anyway, I did wear it on Midsummer Nice Eve. Yeah, we've had Midsummer here as well. Midsummer is around the 20th of June. It was maybe the 23rd this year, doesn't matter. And yeah, we went to some friends who live outside of Stockholm, so we had a really nice day. It was quite warm, but then when the evening came, it became quite chilly, so I wore that cardigan on our way home. So that was really nice. And yeah, I think we should move on to the next pattern. Cheers! And we're back. So the camera decided to take a break as well. I've changed the batteries, we're fine now. The next pattern I have is quite an exciting one, and it was my first pattern that I knit from Caitlin Hunter actually. And it is, or rather I worked on this from May through June, and I was intending to bring this to Italy with me, but I was nowhere near finished when we were actually going. So yeah, it just works out like that sometimes. But it is the Misurina top, and I wanted to knit this one because the name is actually, or it's named after a lake in the Dolomites called Misurina. So that's why I wanted to knit this initially. But you know, things don't always work out the way you want it. This pattern is a 20 stitch gauge pattern, I think. Yeah, 20 stitch gauge pattern on 3.5mm needles. I worked this up in 4mm needles to get more of that DK gauge, which worked out well. And I knit this in size 2. It has a recommended ease of 15 to 23 centimeters. Yeah, it comes in sizes, or rather it comes in 10 different sizes, with a finished circumference ranging from 91.5 to 183 centimeters. So it's rather a large range. And it's this round yoke top worked seamlessly from the top down. It starts with this collar, which is like the Apollonis sweater, a bit rolled at the top. It has this ribbing section, short ribbing section, and then lace panel, followed by this color work and cable stitch pattern. And then lastly, you have this body section or short sleeve section, where you have the option to work in either pearl dots or eyelets, like open holes, and I opted for the pearl dots. It has a bind off in pattern on both hem and sleeves, which worked out nicely for me. Oh yeah, and it has like some rolling edges here as well. Like I said, I finished this in June after a bit of a knitting marathon. I wanted it to be finished, and I worked mine up in, again, Sandnes Garn Tynn liner, in this burnt sand kind of a shade. I think it's called burnt sand actually, and it's in the colorway 2734, again from Stash, and I paired it with this raspberry shade. I suppose it looks a bit more red to you maybe, but it's this kind of deep pink sort of shade, and it's the colorway 4335. This was from my pantry. I've had it for a year, and this I bought for this pattern. I thought they would go well together, and I think they do. But let me know what you think of this color pairing. From the start, I was intending to go a bit more charcoal grey as the sample is knit out of, but I opted for this raspberry shade instead. And I held the threads double actually to reach more of a DK gauge weight, whereas the pattern has fingering weight yarn suggested for it. But since it was a 20 stitch gauge, I figured it would work in a DK weight, and I think it did. worked on 4mm needles, it worked out just fine. So if you're curious and you have some of this yarn or some DK weight yarn, it might work out nicely for you too. What are my thoughts on this pattern? It's quite an intense and engaging pattern, really from the start almost to the end. There is always something going on, right? It's never just stockinette stitch. Oh, and yeah, it has a half twisted rib. Sorry, I didn't show you that detail, but hopefully you'll be able to see that it has, the stitches are, the knit stitches are twisted and the purl stitches are not. And I think that makes for a nice detail on this top piece. And again, since it's plant fibers like linen, viscose and cotton, it's really drapey fabric. I haven't worn this yet actually. I finished it a while back, but I haven't worn it yet. But it's on my list of things to wear. It's a super clear pattern, I think. I had no issues following along to this, and I'm still quite new at lace and cables, and I thought it worked out fine. And the color work as well. The only thing is that I think that if you want to attempt this pattern, I think you need, if you don't already know, I think you will need to learn how to catch floats. There are some sections with quite long floats, and so the thread's going on the backside with the color that you're not using at the time. So for instance, over the cable section, like you carry the contrasting color all the way throughout the back, and I needed to find some way to catch the floats. Otherwise it would have been really difficult to maintain a good tension, and I would have gotten caught on the strands. Like when you take it on or take it off, your fingers might get caught in the yarn. Maybe we can do a little something like this. And it is, yeah, and I can mention also it is quite warm, especially on the colorwork section, because there you have quite a lot of yarn layering. But yeah, here you go. Here are my floats. And I think you can see where I've caught the yarn in the cable sections. And I think I managed to do it mostly without it showing so much on the front. And I think it helps that it is not a super duper contrasty yarn, but I think there are some places where if you look really closely, you can see it, the red, pink poking through. All in all, a nice pattern. It was a good challenge. And I believe I will wear this more than I have. And again, Stash Buster project, and I really wanted to make this, and I did. Would I make it again? Maybe. Maybe. I would consider knitting this, but in a woolier kind of yarn with long sleeves for a DK weight, more winter appropriate pattern. Yeah, I think that could be nice too. That's it for that one. Let's move on to the next. Yeah, let's move on to the next to last finished object. And I'm gonna try and keep this a bit short and sweet. It's a pair of basic socks, fingering weight socks. I used a free pattern again by Järbo, and I think the designer is Inga-Lill Johansson. This was a Stash Buster project as well. So we're ticking all the boxes, free pattern, Stash Buster. It's all fabulous. And it's fingering weight pair of socks on 2.5mm needles. I knit mine in size, European size 40 to 41, but it comes in sizes ranging from 22 all the way up to 45. So it's like small kid to adult. It's an easy basic pattern. It might be available in English actually, and I will link the Ravelry page just to be sure, but the pattern is just called Classic Socks in one of their yarn types, fingering weight yarn that they have. Yeah, these were my first fingering weight socks. I've knit one pair of socks before, and yeah, these, oh, they look so funny like that. I started working on these in June, and I finished them in June. And I actually thought they were fun and engaging. And maybe you can see it better like this. What it's supposed to look like. Oh wow. Yeah, there we go. So this is a pattern worked from the top to the toe, and you go through the ribbing, you knit this flap bit, I think, and then you pick up stitches and you work in the round from here with some decreases going out here, and then some decreases for the toes. And then the pattern has options for either a rounded toe or the straight toe, and the straight toe is what I opted for, and it uses just a 3-needle bind off on the inside, and I think it created this nice and neat looking finish to them. I haven't worn these yet, which is why they are still quite in a pristine condition, but yeah, I really like them, and they turn up really well, and they are knit up. Like, if you like this is also quite an affordable yarn. It's the Drops Fabel. I'm Swedish. I can pronounce it in Swedish. Drops Fabel print. So it's, yeah, it creates this pattern when you knit it up, and it's in the colorway 904. And the funny thing about this is that I actually bought a skein of this when I was small, when I was a kid, and it's since vanished, but I always wanted a pair of socks in this yarn, like forever and ever. And last year I bought 2 skeins of this with the intention of knitting it up, and I finally did. So these were actually a pair of dream socks for me, and I think using a basic pattern like this will also, like a really vanilla sock pattern, also allows the yarn to shine in a nice way. Yeah, the striping and details and dots and everything. And I really like them. So there's not really much more to say about these, I think. I will use these 2 bits, I think, once fall and winter is at the doorstep. So yeah, these are the Järbo basic socks. Fantastic, look forward to wearing them more. So yeah, that's it for all my finished objects. I think we should venture into the realm of my works in progress now. Let's go. So for my first work in progress, it's actually another cardigan. And I started working on this quite recently, also in July. And it's, again, a pattern from the Sari Nordlund Softly Timeless Knits book. And it is Urania cardigan. Let's see. There you go. And it's this cardigan worked top down with a boxy, relaxed fit. It has some simple cables that run from the back of the neck all the way down the front. It's worked up in a DK weight gauge, basically, so 20 stitches on 4mm needles, with an intended ease of 20 to 30 centimeters, of positive ease that is, and I'm knitting mine in size 2. It comes in 9 sizes, with a finished circumference ranging from 102 to 180 centimeters. I have chosen to knit this in a combination actually of a relatively recent acquisition as well as an old pantry yarn. And that might be the most interesting bit about this whip actually, the yarn combination that I'm using. Here it is, anyway. I think you can see that I've started on the collar here, so this is the back neck, and you have some shoulder seams running throughout, so I haven't, it's still in the early parts of its journey, I think, but I'm knitting this in 2 strands. In 1 strand of Sunday by Sandnes Garn, and 1 strand of Nutiden yarn. And I think this was from the May collection this year. It's a shade called Kronblad, which is a really light and fluffy pink with specks of purple and reddish tones. and I think it's it reminds me of bubblegum, and I thought it paired quite nicely together. Worked up, they meet like a perfect 20 stitch gauge. So the Sunday yarn by Sandnes Garn is an old petite knit shade, and I don't think they make this anymore. I bought it at 50% off or something last year, but it is in the shade 4313, and I think it was called frozen yogurt or something. Maybe you can hunt it down if you really want it, but I think they work well together. And this Nutiden yarn, if you haven't heard me or anyone speak about this before, it's called an unspun kind of yarn, which means that all of the strands are, it's not spun basically. You can, for instance, pull it apart very easily, but held together with something like this becomes quite easy to work with actually. So it's one strand of each, and it's working up, for me at least, to a DK weight kind of combination. And I think they work quite nicely together, like I said. So here is a close-up of what the fabric looks like, and the cable as well. Yeah, I think it's a fun combination. And I don't usually work much with pink, but I thought that I would this time. And it's kind of a nice summery kind of project. It's a kind of intentional snow knit. An intentional slow knit for me. This will be finished once it's finished, and I'm not going to rush it because it is knit flat and at a DK gauge. So it takes a while, and it's gonna take a while, and that's fine. My only goal is to not, or rather to be finished with it before New Year's Eve, basically. Not that I want to necessarily wear it on New Year's Eve, but just so that I don't carry it with me to 2025. But that's a long way away in the future. So basically, if it's finished this year, I'm gonna be happy. I don't know that there's much more to say about this. I do plan on making a modification. We'll see once I've locked it. Once you're finished, you pick up and knit the bottom band. Let's see there, so I don't show you the pattern. So it's this bit here. But I'm thinking of maybe not doing that. I'm not sure I'm gonna want buttons necessarily on this cardigan, if it can be worn open. And it has slipped edge stitches already, so it has quite a nice finished edge. Oh, sorry, that's the inside. But to me, it doesn't necessarily look unfinished. So I think I might actually skip the button band and just knit it anyway. And it's a new type of construction for me, working this way. And yeah, I think it would be nice to have another cardigan. I realized since last winter that I think it's like cardigans are underrated. is my conclusion. Knit heavy sweaters that don't have any type of opening on the front, they can be really warm, especially if you have, I work in quite a warm office, and then I can't really wear my knit pieces if I can't open them up. So I think more cardigans will be a good way forward. And at some point I would like to make a steeked cardigan, so where you knit everything in the round and then you cut up stitches in the middle and stitches for the sleeves and work that way. I've never done that before, but I hear, yeah, Florence's knitting podcast. Oh shoot, Handmade by Florence. That's the channel name. She's done some steeked, or at least one, I think. Steeked cardigan? No, steeked sweater. But it has steeks for the sleeves and the collar. And she was really happy with it and worked out well for her first try. So I think I would like to give it a go at some point. But yeah, and I should mention it. Like I said, the pattern is from this book, and it has some cables with charts for it, right? So here's what I don't like about this, about the way that this book has been, like the layout inside. So let's see. I have my pattern like here on page 66 is my pattern now. On page, and this is why you can see some post-it notes sticking out everywhere. On page 12 is the explanation for the abbreviations used in the charts and patterns. So yeah, and then all the way back on page 196 are the charts, which means, especially when you're learning the charts and what all the abbreviations stand for, you are jumping backwards and forwards in this book, like for each row, maybe multiple times. If you have charts, for instance, like I do on this cardigan, one chart for the right side, and one for the left side. Like it's not a great experience having to jump around that much. Usually a pattern will come with the charts connected to the pattern. So for instance, the Misurina, or maybe it's not a great example, but I have another book back there called Observations by, yeah, let's see, I'll put the information here. There you go. And she has all of the charts and everything are connected to the pattern that they are used in. I don't know why this book has a huge section at the end where all the charts are just thrown in. I don't think it's very intuitive to knit that way, like jumping backwards and forwards, especially with the abbreviations. Like that's 3 points in the book where you might need to jump backwards and forwards. So that's one thing I don't like. But I think the patterns are all really fantastically thought out, and I think Sari Nordlund does a really good job of walking you through her patterns. So it's not that I don't like the patterns in this book, I just don't like the layout. The layout of the book that much. That was the Urania cardigan by Sari Nordlund. Work in progress. I will update you. But again, it might not happen a lot. But then again, it might if I get stuck. Or like get stuck on it in a I want to work on it kind of way. Yeah, let's move on to my next work in progress. And actually, I have no further notes, so the rest of it is kind of freestyle. I mentioned this as well. Not that you've seen what I'm going to show you, but this is it. I have mentioned it before. It is the Soho top by Caidree, and originally I had intended to bring this with me to Italy as well, and then I hit a massive knitting slump where I just didn't feel like knitting for a few weeks before we left, and so nothing happened on this. But here it is, the Soho top. So it's a garter stitch top with I-cord details around the collar and the sleeves. And yeah, what I remember from this, because I haven't worked on it since May, maybe even April, is that I think I liked it and it was pretty clear. I think this is the front panel, and then you knit a very similar back panel, and then you connect to knit in the body and the round. So I think this is, yeah, this is knit up to the sleeve split. And it's a pattern using, let's see what they use, what Caidree used. So it's a 10, the pattern comes in 10 different sizes with a finished bust circumference ranging from 76 to 136 centimeters with an intended ease of 0 to 7 centimeters. I'm knitting mine in size 4, which would give me about 15 centimeters of positive ease. So I guess I chose to go a bit wild with the ease there, but yeah, it will probably be really nice and flowy. Oh yeah, because the sample, the knitted sample on the front is a size 4, and I think I probably just like the way it fit her there. And it has a gauge of 20 stitches and using 4mm needles. So it's basically a DK gauge weight, which is what I used. And I'm gonna get to my yarn choice. But the designer used fingering weight yarn held double. So for instance, if you wanted to use 2 strands of Tynn liner, I think that will work well. I think that's all the basic info. Oh, I think everything I made has been with Sandnes Garn, but that's because I had a period last year where I just bought everything that was on sale, and it was a lot of items from Sandnes Garn, a lot of colors going out of, a lot of colors were being discontinued. And maybe this one as well, I don't remember. But this is the Mandarin Naturel yarn, which is 100% cotton. Yes, 100% cotton in this like cooler ashy brown shade. It's the colorway 3870. And I think it's quite a nice cotton to work with. It's not mercerized at all, so it has a matte kind of finish. It's not shiny. And yeah, if I haven't shown you up close, here it is. And I think it's creating a nice and drapey kind of a fabric. So the one thing that worries me a bit about working on this pattern is actually so when you're doing these parts, the front and the back, you're working them flat. And in garter stitch, that means that every row are just made up of knit stitches. But once you connect to go in the round, every other row will have to be purled. And I think that has me kind of mentally blocked from working on this, because I know that once I reach that point, it will be a bit more difficult to work on. But I do like the shade, and I think if I manage to finish it, I think it has the potential of being one of my most worn objects, because it is really quite thin, and I think it would be a really nice fabric to wear. And with maybe a cardigan or something in the winter, I think it would be really nice to wear to the office as well, or something along those lines. In the shade, I think I like it as a neutral shade. But enough about that. We'll keep you updated on it. But for now, not much has been done on it. My third and final work in progress is actually another pair of socks. And I'm working these up with yarn from my pantry again, that I bought last year. And it's a pair of DK weight socks. So the first ones were fingering weight, these are DK weight. They are working up a bit quicker, but since I'm mainly working on my cardigan, and the socks are for me have turned out to be such a good project to bring on the go, and also I'm not stressed about these socks, that I'm just taking my time with it. I'm in no rush. But it is also my first time working on socks using magic loop. So I have a long, I think it's a 100 centimeter cable needle. These are 3mm needles, which are recommended. These are also a free pattern. It's called the Magdalenasockan, or the Magdalene sock, again by Järbo. Yeah. So far so good, I think. It doesn't have a super clear project photo, I don't think, or maybe you can tell. So the one thing that I have done is that, do you see these open holes running on the side? I've opted to exclude those. Or actually I started working them up and then I didn't like the way they looked, so I ripped back down, not the entire rounds, but just those 2 stitches that made up the hole, basically. And I knit them back up using a crochet hook. And I think you can maybe tell a bit from the striping, but yeah, it's fine. So it has this really nice lace pattern on the top of the sock, and it runs all the way. You can choose to work it up the leg as well, on the front and the back side, which I think I will. And it is, like you might be able to tell, a toe up sock. So you cast on using Judy's Magic Cast On, which creates this really nice continuous kind of sock. And then it has knit front back increases, which creates this nice shape. And I really like this lace motif, and I think it will be a comfy sock. But onto the yarn that I'm knitting this up in. And this is also a kind of a mystery yarn, because it came and then it disappeared, basically. Again, in Sandnes garn, called Strumpe garn. It means sock yarn. But it has quite an interesting composition, which is why I bought this in the first place. Of 40% alpaca, 40% merino wool, and 20% nylon. And DK weight yarn at 50 grams is 135 meters. Its recommended gauge is 22 stitches on 3.5mm needles. So I think I'm working it up on a slightly tighter gauge with my 3mm needles, but I think that will create just a sturdier sock fabric, and it's what is recommended in the pattern as well. It's in the colorway 2321. And this yarn, it came and it went. I think it's no longer being created. Because it has this alpaca merino mix. It is really soft, but still feels very sturdy, which is probably because of the nylon content. But I actually recently learned, I think that Isayer has a similar style yarn, and maybe I can pop up some info here if you're interested in a substitution. But I think this will, yeah, I'll work on this slowly as well. I'm in no rush. Like, you don't really need socks like in the summer. So yeah, no rush. No rush for me. But those were all of my works in progress, all my finished objects. And I think now, if you're still with me, which I hope you are, let's head into acquisitions. I have some acquisitions for you as well. The first one is just this. And I use this as my sock project bag. So this is what I keep my little sock in. This really colorful, it's like a makeup bag, I think, but it has, and then here I have usually, yeah, measuring tape and like a stitch marker or something. And then it kind of perfectly fits like one skein of yarn and the sock. And I think it's really colorful. It's, if you're in Sweden or the Nordic countries, it's from Åhléns, and I think it's their own brand. But it makes me happy to look at, and it's super convenient to throw in my bag. Like I mentioned, I apparently like knitting socks on the go. So it's perfect to have a small bag like this that makes you happy. I bought this in May, I think. Then the cardigan, like I mentioned, is worked up in Kronblad, which is a rather recent nutiden purchase. Again, this fluffy pink yarn that I showed you earlier. If you want to see how it knits up single-stranded, this is what it looks like. Like a super dainty and fine yarn. But I didn't only get 300 grams of Kronblad. I also got 300 grams of this green shade called Piggelin. 300 grams as well. And the funny thing is, Piggelin with an E at the end. Without the E is a Swedish ice cream. Like an icicle, a popsicle. And it is this shade. Maybe I can see if I can find a picture of it. It's a super classic popsicle here, and it is in this shade, and it reminds me of that. And the color made me happy. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with it yet, but I think it's such a fun shade, and it inspires me. So that's why I bought it. To be continued. I can put that over to the side. Oh, and I have a swatch, a single strand swatch of this yarn as well. So it knits up like this. So it has a bit of variegation with darker green spots, lighter green spots, some more yellow spots as well. Really nice. But that was it for acquisitions, I think. Yeah, I'm gonna move on to some fun extra stuff. I also recently got an e-reader, and this is a Rakuten Kobo, and I am currently reading The Familiar by Lee Bardugo. I believe that Taylor from Wool Needles Hands knitting podcast actually has been reading this book, but I've read some other books by Lee Bardugo as well, the Ninth House series, and I wanted to continue. Like she's written some teenage stuff or young adult stuff, but this is for sure for adults, and I really like it so far, and I really like this e-reader. If you have a romanticized image of reading by candlelight, you can really easily do that if you have an e-reader with the lighting in the background. You can use brightness, and it has also so that you can add on red light for when you're reading in the evening. And I really liked it so far. And just imagine how easy it would be to take on the go as compared to a huge pocketbook. I can really recommend it. I think Emily from High Fiber Knits recently got a Kobo e-reader as well. But I'll keep you updated. So The Familiar, that's a nice reading suggestion if you're into fantasy. So it's centered around magic and stuff. But I also got another book on pre-sale actually from the Kobo store, which is a Deborah Harkness continuation on the Discovery of Witches series, which I've also read through and can really recommend if you're interested. It's the 5th book in the series, and it's been 3 years since book 4, so I've been waiting for a long time. And I bought it on pre-sale, and then it was automatically added to my Kobo library yesterday. Actually, the book came out on the Kobo device, and I'm looking very much forward to that as well. Again, fantasy. Maybe you can tell from the name of the book, but it's called Blackbird Oracle, the Blackbird Oracle, and I'm looking very much forward to that as well. But I think I'm going to finish the Familiar before I get on with that, and that's also a good recommendation if you're into fantasy and magic and witches and everything. But I think that was actually everything for this episode. It's been a wild ride. It's been a lot, but hopefully it won't be such a long time before my next video. I do have some more video ideas, which will mean not only regular knitting podcasts, which I'm thinking about doing once a month in the future. So it will be some bonus content as well. Moving forward is my idea, at least. With that, I will leave you for today. But thank you so much for hanging out with me. It's such an honor to have you here, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. It's a long one, but hopefully a good one as well. And I will see you, hopefully, in the next one. Bye!